He's the only one who truly makes us proud. I stared at those words on my phone screen, an untouched cake for my 30th birthday sitting in front of me. It was my mom's comment under my brother Ryan's Facebook post. In the photo, he was smiling at the airport, ready for a surprise trip to Hawaii that our parents had just given him. The entire post was littered with hearts and enthusiastic emojis, and below it were dozens of congratulatory messages from relatives and friends. My name is Olivia, and I was celebrating my 30th birthday alone in my quiet apartment in Denver, Colorado. I worked as a graphic designer and made a decent living, but nothing extravagant. I lived alone and was a rather private person, having spent the last 6 years trying in vain to prove my worth to my family. That morning, I woke up hoping for a call, a text, or at least a card in the mail. But there was only silence. It was in that moment that I stumbled upon that very Facebook post. My birthday cake, bought specially for the day, sat alone on the table, its appearance seeming more depressing with each passing second. I refreshed the feed, clinging to a faint hope that I had imagined it, but no. There he was, my 25-year-old brother, Ryan, his face glowing with happiness as if he'd been handed the keys to the world. And right below the photo was my mom's comment, displayed for all to see. To be honest, it wasn't a shock. This script was painfully familiar. Ryan had always been the star of our family, the one whose achievements were praised to the heavens and whose mistakes were never noticed. And me? I was always in his shadow, a secondary character in their story, whose existence was a given, not a reason for pride. Throughout our childhood, Ryan got the best of everything. He had the biggest bedroom, constantly new clothes, and tutors the moment he fell slightly behind in any subject. I got his hand-me-downs, and my excellent grades earned nothing more than a fleeting pat on the shoulder. When Ryan decided he wanted to play hockey, they didn't hesitate to shell out a small fortune for equipment and training. But when I dared to ask to be signed up for a photography course, my father said it was too expensive and advised me to think of something more down-to-earth. In the end, I had to work after school at a local diner to buy a used camera myself. My parents didn't even come to the school exhibition where my work was displayed. But they never missed a single one of Ryan's hockey games, always taking the best seats and proudly cheering him on from the stands. I still decided to dial her number, deep down hoping she had just gotten busy and forgotten. After a few agonizingly long rings, she answered, her voice rushed. "Olivia? Is something urgent?" she asked. "Your brother and I are just boarding." "I just wanted to say it's my birthday today," I said quietly. Silence fell on the other end, broken only by the airport noise. "Oh, right. Of course. Happy birthday, dear. I really have to run. We'll talk when we land." And she hung up. The dial tone sounded like a death sentence. I looked at the cake, which now seemed like a mockery. Suddenly, something inside me snapped. I opened my laptop and, without hesitation, logged into the joint bank account I shared with my parents. The very one I had been transferring money to for the last 4 years. The story began a few years ago when my mother's health declined. She needed an emergency surgery, and the hospital bills started piling up, one after another, while their meager insurance barely helped. They quickly fell into debt. I had just landed my first serious job and, without a second thought, decided to step in. I set up an automatic transfer of $700 from my salary to their bank account every month. To me, it was a given, they were my parents. But they never acknowledged it. Not a single word of thanks in all those years. When I dared to hint at it during a family gathering a couple of years ago, my mom just brushed it off, saying, "Oh, sweetie, that's very kind of you, but we're managing just fine without it." Really? Managing just fine, echoed in my head. So fine that they could afford to spend several $1,000s on a lavish trip to Hawaii for my brother. I quickly did the math. 4 years, $700 every month. That totaled $33,600. $33,600 that I had transferred to them, genuinely believing I was helping them make ends meet. With a heavy heart, I scrolled through the transaction history. Besides the expected payments for the house and groceries, I stumbled upon something that made my stomach clench. A $6,000 payment to a travel agency. Several receipts from expensive stores. And the cherry on top was a transfer of $11,000 to Ryan's personal account with a note birthday gift. They were shamelessly spending my money. Not on vital necessities, but on their favorite son. It was like an electric shock. I leaned back in my chair, feeling my hands tremble. How naive I had been. All these years, all this money, they were just funneling it to Ryan while I counted every dollar. I had denied myself vacations and new clothes, genuinely believing I was helping them survive. Memories flooded back of all the times I didn't go on weekend trips with colleagues because I couldn't afford it. I remembered weeks of eating cheap noodles to save up for car repairs. All my sacrifices had only served to let my parents provide Ryan with a royal life at my expense. My gaze fell on the lonely birthday cake, then back to the laptop screen. The decision formed instantly. I clicked the button that said withdraw all funds. The money transfer took a few days. To avoid suspicion, I transferred all $33,600 back to my account in small increments. I kept telling myself I wasn't stealing. It was my money, earned through my own hard work. Yes, I had given it voluntarily, but they had abused my trust. So I was just taking back what was mine. At first, I was overwhelmed with guilt. I couldn't sleep at night, tormented by the question of whether I was being too petty, if I was overreacting. But then I would remember my mother's comment under that post, "He's the only one who truly makes us proud." And the guilt would instantly evaporate, replaced by a cold, unwavering resolve. I told no one what I had done. I continued going to work and living my usual life, pretending everything was normal. But something inside had changed. I felt either lighter, or just angrier. On the fourth day of his vacation, Ryan called me from Hawaii. I declined the call. He called again the next day, and then again. Finally, I answered. "Olivia, my God, you have to see this place. It's paradise. Mom and Dad are so generous. We went snorkeling yesterday, and tonight we're having dinner at this amazing restaurant right on the ocean." "Sounds nice," I replied, trying to keep my voice even. "Are you okay? You sound weird." "I'm fine. Just busy." "Well, I wanted to say thank you. I know you've been helping Mom and Dad with money, and I'm sure it's one of the reasons they were able to set up this trip for me. So, thanks." A bitter laugh almost escaped me. "Almost. Instead, I said, don't even mention it." "You're the best big sister in the world," he said, and I could practically hear his smile. I ended the call and threw the phone across the room. The thing is, Ryan wasn't a bad person. Not malicious or vengeful. He was just ignorant. Spoiled, yes, but not cruel by nature. His parents had raised him to believe the world revolved around him, and he genuinely believed it. I couldn't even blame him for it. It wasn't his fault they had chosen him as their favorite. But that didn't make it any less painful. It reminded me of an incident from my childhood. I was about 14. I had worked all summer to save up for an old camera I saw in the window of a pawn shop. The day I finally bought it, I burst into the house to show my parents. But their entire universe was revolving around Ryan. He had gotten a bad grade in history, and they were consoling him as if something terrible had happened, already promising him a new video game if he improved his grade. "That's nice, Olivia," my mom said without even turning her head when I showed them the camera. "Please, not now, we're trying to help your brother." I went to my room, clutching the camera tightly, and cried quietly. It wasn't that I needed their praise. I just wanted them to care, even for a moment. For what was important to me to be important to them. I spent the next week planning my future. I wasn't going to blow this money on trinkets. I wanted to invest it in something meaningful. I considered investments or a down payment on a small apartment. But then an ad for an online course in healthcare administration caught my eye. It was a 6-month certification program in a field that had always interested me, but for which I never had the time or money. The tuition was $7,000. Before, that amount seemed astronomical. Now, it was a real possibility. That same evening, I paid for the course and enrolled. At first, my parents didn't notice the missing money. But exactly 2 weeks after I had withdrawn everything, a call came from my father. "Olivia, we need to talk." His voice was tense. My heart sank. "About what?" "About our joint account. There must be some mistake. A large sum of money is missing." "Missing?" I asked, trying to sound as innocent as possible. "Yes. Over $30,000. I've already called the bank, and they said the money was transferred." "Do you know anything about this?" I paused, letting him hear the silence. "Dad, I just transferred my funds back to my personal account." His stunned silence on the other end was more eloquent than any words. "What are you talking about?" He finally managed. "That was our joint emergency fund. We were relying on it." I let out a bitter laugh. "Emergency fund? Do you consider a spontaneous vacation to Hawaii for Ryan an emergency necessity?" He hesitated. That's different. Your brother needed to unwind, we just wanted to do something nice for him." "And what about me?" My voice turned to ice as I unleashed years of pent-up frustration. "Do you have any idea how much I sacrificed to send you that money every month? And you silently took it, never once thanking me, and spent it on your favorite. All my help, all my sacrifices went to giving Ryan a beautiful life." "That's not true, you're twisting things." He weakly tried to argue. "No, Dad. Distortion is being used as a faceless ATM for years. I took back what belongs to me. And I don't feel a shred of regret." Without waiting for a reply, I ended the call. My hands were shaking, but this time from a surge of power. For the first time in my life, I had stood up to them. It was terrifying, but incredibly liberating. I made myself some tea and settled into my favorite armchair, watching the dusk settle outside. I braced myself for the wave of guilt, waiting for the familiar pang of conscience for my actions. But there was nothing. Instead, an unexpected calm washed over me. It felt as if I had finally thrown an invisible but incredibly heavy weight off my shoulders, a weight I had been carrying since childhood. It was a feeling of pure, unadulterated relief. Of course, the storm didn't take long to arrive. That evening, a call came from my mother. "How could you do this to us, Olivia?" Her voice rang with offense. "We trusted you." "Trusted me?" I repeated, trying to stay calm. "Does trust include years of lies?" "We didn't lie. We were just managing family funds. We didn't think you'd make such a fuss about it." "A fuss?" "Mom, we're talking about almost $34,000. Money I gave you thinking you needed it, and you blew it on Ryan. Your brother is going through a tough time. He needed our support. And I don't?" I asked into the void. There was no answer. Instead, she changed tactics. "Your father and I are deeply disappointed in you." I laughed bitterly. "Of course. When have I not been a disappointment to you? Ryan is your pride. And I'm just me." "That's not true," she said lifelessly. "Then tell me, Mom. When was the last time you were genuinely happy for my successes? When did you even ask how I was doing, and not just whether my transfer had arrived on time?" She was silent. Then she uttered a rehearsed line, "We'll talk when you've come to your senses." And she hung up. I waited for tears, but none came. Instead, a cold emptiness formed in my chest. The realization that my mother saw their favoritism as normal hurt deeper than any shout. I channeled all my pain and disappointment into my studies. The healthcare administration course became my salvation. The complex material demanded my full concentration, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was building something for myself, not trying to earn someone's approval. My life found a new rhythm. Evening classes and weekends spent with textbooks and a cozy coffee shop introduced me to people who were also striving for change. I stopped feeling invisible. Even my colleague, Chloe, noticed a change in me. We were on friendly terms, but lately, she started inviting me for coffee more often, taking an interest in my life. I didn't tell her everything, but I shared enough about the money, the family, and how I always felt like a non-entity. "You did the absolute right thing," she said one afternoon as we sat in a cafe near the office. "They were just taking advantage of your kindness." "I'm trying to convince myself of that," I admitted, but the guilt still won't let go. "Guilt for what?" "For finally having a voice?" Chloe countered. "For them being my family. I'm supposed to just forget and forgive, right?" Chloe shook her head. "You know, Olivia, there's a huge difference between forgiveness and letting people walk all over you. You can love them, but from a safe distance, by setting clear boundaries." Her words hit home. My whole life, I had been running on an endless treadmill, trying to earn their love, never realizing I could just step off. Ryan returned from Hawaii 3 weeks after my birthday and called immediately. This time, I decided to answer. "Olivia, what the hell is going on? Mom and Dad are furious." "I can imagine," I replied coolly. "They said you stole money from their account." "Is that true?" "I took my money back, Ryan." "But they needed it." "No, they didn't. They needed it to pay for your vacation." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then he said quietly, "I didn't know." "Of course, you didn't know. That's your specialty, isn't it? Living in your perfect world while others deal with real problems." "That's not fair," he mumbled. "Maybe. But it's the truth." "Olivia, I'm so sorry. I really didn't understand." "It doesn't matter anymore," I interrupted him. "Just live your life, Ryan. You've always been good at that." I hung up and, without a second thought, blocked his number. That night, looking at myself in the mirror, I saw a stranger. There was less hurt and more resolve in this woman's eyes. She was stronger. My mother's words under that Facebook photo flashed in my memory again, "He's the only one who truly makes us proud." And suddenly, I understood. I had spent my whole life desperately seeking their approval, completely forgetting that the only opinion that truly mattered was my own. And for the first time in many years, I was truly proud of myself. I scrolled through the photo album on my phone, looking at a series of pictures from the last few years. I was smiling in each one, but it was just a mask, tired and forced. I saw a woman who was desperately trying to appear happy. Then, standing in front of the bathroom mirror, in my regular loungewear with messy hair, I took a new photo. And in this one, I was smiling for real, because for the first time in a long time, that smile was just for me. I posted the picture on Facebook with a short caption, 30. Finally living. I didn't tag anyone. It wasn't for them. It was my personal declaration. A month of relative quiet passed before they tried to reach me again. My mother, finding her number blocked, found a workaround, email. The subject line read, "We need to resolve this situation." My finger hovered over the delete button. I almost pressed it. But curiosity got the better of me, and I opened the email. The content was a punch to the gut. "Olivia, your father and I have discussed your behavior and have concluded that it is unacceptable. You acted selfishly by taking money that the family had plans for. Your brother is completely devastated, and frankly, so are we. This is not how we raised you. We expect you to return the full amount immediately and apologize to Ryan for ruining such an important event for him. He has been depressed ever since he found out what you did. Family is about support, and you have betrayed us all. We await your call for an adult conversation. Mom." I reread the message several times, unable to believe my eyes. They didn't just want the money back that they had already spent. They were demanding I apologize for ruining Ryan's trip. The absurdity of the situation was off the charts. I was being blamed for taking back my own funds, which they had used to pay for a vacation that had already happened. It was beyond my comprehension. My reply was swift and decisive, the words flowing on their own. Mom, let's be clear once and for all. I owe you nothing. That money was my help in a time of need, not a fund for Ryan's entertainment. You took my support for granted, and you took me for granted. Well, that source of income has dried up. I will no longer be your ATM, and I will not allow myself to be ignored. When you're ready for an adult conversation about how you've treated me my entire life, you know how to find me. Until then, please do not contact me. Olivia. I hit send without giving myself a chance to reconsider. My studies became my everything. I threw myself into the healthcare administration program, and by the end of the second month, my results were the best in the class. This new life introduced me to Ava. We studied together, and she became the first person I could tell the whole truth about my family to without holding back. My success didn't go unnoticed. One evening after a lecture, our instructor, Ms. Albright, a woman with 20 years of experience in the field, stopped me. Olivia, you have a real gift, she said without preamble. Your attention to detail is phenomenal. Have you thought about what you'll do after you graduate? I confessed that I was looking for something stable, perhaps at the city hospital. She smiled. I was just about to suggest that. A good acquaintance of mine at Denver General Health System is looking for a specialist for a management position in the billing department. The pay is more than decent. I would be happy to recommend you. I was speechless for a moment, trying to process what she'd said. Are you serious? My voice came out quieter than I expected. Absolutely, she confirmed with an encouraging smile. I don't say things like that lightly. I'll email you all the information. Of course, you'll still have a formal interview, but I'm confident you're exactly the candidate they're looking for. When I left the training center, the evening air in Denver seemed especially fresh, and the city lights shone brighter than usual. For the first time in my life, I felt that my destiny was in my own hands. This chance wasn't a gift, not a favor. I had earned it with my own hard work, and the feeling was intoxicating. The interview at Denver General Health System was scheduled for the following Tuesday. All weekend, my small kitchen table was buried under textbooks and printouts. I spent hours rereading my notes, filling pages with scribbles, and rehearsing answers in front of the mirror until I felt completely confident. Ava came over on Saturday with an armful of hangers, and we had a full-blown fashion show until we found the perfect outfit, a sharp, dark blue pantsuit. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't see a downtrodden daughter, but a confident woman, a professional. This suit was my armor. The morning of the interview, a swarm of nervous butterflies took up residence in my stomach. This was the biggest opportunity of my career, a decisive moment. Standing in front of the mirror, I took a deep breath and looked at my reflection. This was more than just an interview. It was my ticket to a new life. And no one, especially my family, could stop me. The interview exceeded all my wildest expectations. The conversation with Susan, the head of the department, was easy and natural from the start. She asked with genuine interest about my sales experience and was impressed that I was balancing a job with intensive studies to change my career. Your instructor gave you a glowing recommendation, Susan said, and I can see why. We need someone exactly like you, organized, detail-oriented, and able to stay calm under pressure. But when she mentioned the starting salary, I nearly gripped the arms of my chair. $75,000 a year, plus a full benefits package. It was almost double what I had ever earned. Those terms are more than acceptable to me, I managed to say, trying to keep my voice from trembling with shock. Excellent, she smiled. We'll let you know our decision by the end of the week. I left her office, and then the massive hospital building, in a state of near euphoria. It felt like I wasn't walking, but floating on air. Things were really looking up. My life was changing right before my eyes. In the car, I saw my phone screen lit up with missed calls, 6 from my mother and 3 from my father. Without a second thought, I dismissed the notifications and started the engine. Their problems were no longer mine. That evening, I met Ava at a cozy wine bar to celebrate. In the dim light of the establishment, still in disbelief, I recounted the entire conversation, including the incredible salary figure. "That's not luck, Olivia," she said, raising her glass. "This is the natural result. You've earned every penny." "I keep feeling like something is about to go wrong," I confessed. "Like this is the calm before the storm." "Stop it," Ava said firmly. "You've done the hard work. You finally chose yourself, and there's nothing selfish about that. It's self-preservation." Time flew by as we talked, and by the end of the evening, I realized that for the first time in many months, I felt not just relief, but real, genuine happiness. However, that warm feeling vanished the moment I stepped into my apartment. A new email from my mother was waiting in my inbox. The subject was a single word: urgent. A chill ran down my spine. Despite all the pain and resentment, they were still my family. If there was a real emergency, I had to know. The euphoria I had been basking in all evening evaporated the moment I opened that email. Its content was like a punch to the gut. My mother wrote that my father had lost his job a week ago, and now they were on the brink of financial disaster. She wasn't asking, but demanding the money back, calling it the only way to save their home from foreclosure. It was an ultimatum disguised as a cry for help. I reread the lines over and over, feeling a cold wave of reality wash away the remnants of my recent happiness. Their trouble, their recklessness, it was all becoming my problem again. But it wasn't. My mind frantically crunched the numbers: 4 years of monthly transfers, over $33,000. That money should have been their safety net. Instead, they spent it on a luxury vacation for Ryan. The current crisis was the result of their own decisions, not my actions. Logic was on my side, but it was powerless against the suffocating guilt that had been ingrained in me since childhood. They were my parents. Despite all the pain they had caused me, could I really watch coldly as they lost everything? My thoughts were a jumble. I couldn't sort this out alone. My hand found Ava's number and my phone on its own. "It's a total disaster," I explained to her over the phone. "My dad lost his job. They say they might lose the house." "Olivia, listen to me," Ava's voice was firm and calm. "Their financial troubles are not your responsibility." "But what if it's true? What if they end up on the street? Then they'll have to solve that problem like adults. They can sell the house and downsize. They can find other jobs. And in the end, they have Ryan. You gave them their chance, a huge sum of money they chose to spend on entertainment. Their current situation is the result of their own choices." "I know you're right, but it's so hard for me." "No buts. You have a new, amazing career on your doorstep. You are finally building your own life. Don't let them destroy everything you've achieved." Her words were like a cold shower. "Yes," I breathed out. "You're absolutely right." After ending the call, I opened my email and composed a reply. "Mom, I'm sorry to hear about Dad's situation. However, my financial assistance is no longer available to you. Over the past few years, I provided you with more than enough capital, which you managed as you saw fit. I am now focused on building my own future. I'm sure Ryan, in whom you have always placed so much hope, will not leave you in your time of need. I wish you luck in resolving your problems. Olivia." I hit send and turned off my phone, cutting myself off from their chaos. The call from Susan came 3 days later. I was offered the position. I burst into tears right in the middle of my living room. They were tears of relief, of happiness, and of the realization of how long a road I had traveled to reach this moment, all on my own. I had made it. Against all odds, I had made it. That same day, on my way back from the store, I saw Ryan. He was sitting on the steps of my apartment building, looking exhausted. His usual polished confidence was gone. "What are you doing here?" My tone wasn't hostile, but it wasn't welcoming either. He said he had come to apologize and asked for just 5 minutes. After a moment's hesitation, I let him in. While I unpacked my groceries, he awkwardly looked around my living room. It was his first time here, I had never invited him. "Olivia, I swear, I didn't know anything," he began. "I had no idea they were doing that with your money." He told me he had confronted them, but they just brushed him off, calling me a hysteric who was trying to manipulate them. But I didn't believe them. I logged into their online banking and saw it all for myself. Every single transfer. I crossed my arms over my chest. "And what do you want from me now? For me to forgive you?" "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness," he said, and there wasn't a trace of his old self-assurance in his voice. "I'm here because I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to hear it from me in person." He looked like he hadn't slept in days. I was living in a bubble they created for me. "I'm sorry I was so selfish and blind. You're my sister, and I let them treat you like that." The ice in my chest, which I thought would never melt, began to thaw a little. "You were raised that way, Ryan. You didn't know any other life." "That's no excuse," he clenched his fists. "I should have grown up sooner. I should have stood up for you." There were tears in his eyes, and I saw genuine pain in them. "Yes, Ryan," I said quietly. "You should have." "I gave them an ultimatum," he continued. "I told them they wouldn't get another cent from me until they sincerely apologized to you. I wasn't bluffing. This was unexpected." "And what did they say?" A wry smile appeared on his face. "Now I'm on the blacklist too. Apparently, I'm an ungrateful son." I couldn't help a bitter smile. "Well, welcome to the club. I don't understand how you put up with it for so many years." "Did I have a choice?" He ran a hand through his hair. "Anyway, I'm moving out. I found a small apartment, and I'm going back to college. My role as the perfect son is over." "I'm genuinely happy for you," I said, and it was the truth. As he was leaving, he stopped at the door. "Tell me, do you think we have a chance to ever be, well, a real family? To actually support each other?" I looked at this new, broken, but determined person. "Maybe. But it's going to be a very long road, Ryan. And it will take time." "I'm ready," he said firmly. "I'll wait." When the door closed behind him, I was left alone in the silence of my apartment. His words were important. His actions were even more so. It couldn't erase years of pain, but it was a beginning. And in that silence, I realized the most important thing. Their real nightmare wasn't my defiance. It wasn't my anger that scared them. What scared them was my quiet, unshakable happiness, built without their involvement. And that was something they could never take away from me. I had done it. The final word had been spoken. I hadn't just stood up for myself, I had flipped the chessboard on which I had been a pawn my entire life. And I was no longer going to apologize for deciding to become a queen. My first day at Denver General Health System was like a breath of fresh air after a long confinement. Nervous excitement mixed with a deep sense of satisfaction. Every new document, every colleague's smile, even the weight of the ID badge around my neck, it was all real. It was mine. And no one could take it away. Over the weekend, I took a step that would have seemed unthinkable a month ago. I replied to Ryan's message, suggesting we meet at a small, inconspicuous cafe near my apartment. It wasn't an invitation for reconciliation. It was reconnaissance, an attempt to see if something new could be built on the ruins of what we used to call a family. "Thanks for coming," he said as I sat down at the table. "I thought it was time," I replied. He told me he had made another attempt to talk to our parents. "They're impenetrable," he said, staring into his cup. "Convinced you're getting revenge on them and they won't even hear about being wrong." "And what did you say to them?" "I told them I wouldn't be a part of their charade anymore. And if they want to have any kind of relationship with me, they need to grow up and apologize to you first." How did that speech go over? I couldn't hide the irony. Predictably. Mom hung up. Dad informed me that I'm an ungrateful traitor. "I'm sorry," I said sincerely. "Don't be. You opened my eyes. I was so blind, Olivia. I was just going with the flow, taking their handouts for granted, and I let them mold me into someone I no longer respect. I don't want to be that person anymore. Things like that don't change overnight, Ryan. I know. But I'm willing to work on it. Every day. If you'll give me a chance. I looked at him, really looked, without the usual wall of resentment. And I didn't see the confident golden boy, but just a confused young man who was genuinely sorry for his blindness. In his eyes was something I had never seen before, a real, hard-won desire to be better. Okay, I finally said, and the words sounded like a verdict on the past in the quiet room. But we start from absolute zero. No expectations. No reproaches. Just two people trying to become a brother and sister. The relief that washed over his face told me it was the only answer he had been hoping for. I'll agree to any terms. A few days of silence followed, a silence I had learned to appreciate. And then an email with no subject line arrived. From Mom. My heart skipped a beat, but I forced myself to open it. The text was short and a bit clumsy. Olivia, I've been thinking a lot lately. Your brother said you're doing well, and I'm glad to hear that. I'm not good at apologies, and I'm not sure I ever will be. But I want you to know, I see you now. I see what we did, how much we hurt you. I don't expect you to forgive us. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying. Maybe, one day, we can talk. Mom. It wasn't the loud, remorseful apology I had once cried into my pillow for. It was quiet, imperfect, but it was honest. It was a tiny step up a huge mountain. My reply was measured and calm. Thank you for saying that. I'm not ready for a full conversation yet, but maybe one day. I hope you and Dad are doing okay. Her response came almost immediately, we'll be okay. And we hope you will be too. For now, that was more than enough. My life filled with colors I never knew existed. A new job that challenged and fulfilled me. A friendship with Ava that was strong and real. Quiet evenings with a book that were no longer a symbol of loneliness, but a symbol of peace with myself. And I realized that at the end of this journey, I had gained something far more valuable than the money I took back. I had gained an unshakable confidence in my own worth, forged in fire. The realization that I had always been good enough, and I never needed anyone else's approval to prove it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't striking back. It's simply becoming so happy and bright that the shadows of the past can no longer reach you.